the motion. Senator, you have 10 minutes.
Yeah, Cormagat Alaska here, look, and it's indeed a real privilege to stand here and move a motion on the whole issue of community courts. For many, many years, we've heard debate, discourse and discussion on our prison system and the fact that it's overcrowded and the fact that we need to look at a new way of doing business. For too long, we've heard about people getting custodial sentences who really and truly should be engaging in a different form of punishment. And punishment, even Alaska Hirlik, is the wrong word. I would consider it engagement with the state at a different level. I would, at this point, like to welcome Minister Costello to the House. He represents a city constituency. Obviously, we would have liked to have Minister Shatter here as the line minister with specific responsibility in this area. But that said, we all know Minister Shatter's view on this. And we all know as well, indeed, Senator O'Donovan, that he probably has immediately pressing matters which he is dealing with expeditiously and efficiently, and I'm sure to the satisfaction of most. But that said, in the absence of Minister Shatter, I think Minister Costello is eminently appropriate because he knows city life, he knows the challenges that are there, and he knows how people can fall into the wrong company. And a lot of first offences and indeed second and third offences that people are convicted of can often be as a result of falling into the wrong company. The concept of community courts was born in 1993 in New York City, where people in New York City were dealing with a situation where Times Square was effectively a no-go area, that large parts of the city, particularly in the Manhattan area, and indeed places like parks and, you know, Grand Station and all of those areas that we all know, and when we visit New York we tend to love, were no-go areas. There was a decision made at the time that we need to look at doing business in a different way and look at alternative methods of justice. And the concept of community courts was born, in my view, and to the best of my knowledge, in that part of New York. And it did spread to other parts of the world. It is now a concept that's successfully operating in places like Canada, in numerous cities in America, in New Zealand, and to a lesser extent in the United Kingdom. But each jurisdiction is different, and the results depend on the resources that are made available and the engagement and the willingness to make it happen. I was very privileged at the end of January to attend a function up in Stephen's Green, organised by the Dublin Business Association, where they invited people who were involved in the New York experience to come to Dublin and share their experience. And I was delighted also that very eminent people, such as the Lord Mayor of Dublin, Oisin Quinn, and hundreds of people from the legal profession and the business profession attended a half-day seminar on the concept of community courts. That was followed in the afternoon by a sitting of the Joint Oireachtas Committee on Justice, Defence and Equality, which heard testimonials again from those eminent people from New York who attended. Also people from the Law Society and the Law Society of Ireland and Blackhall Place who came and gave their views on the concept of community courts. And what was even more striking at that particular session was the fact that the Minister for Justice sat in as an observer, and that's how serious he's taking the fact that we need to do business differently. And we had a very successful end-of-day meal here in Leinster House, which was attended by the stakeholders and people like Judge Michael Riley, who have been promoting this concept for many years at this stage. To quote the chairman of the Oireachtas Committee on Justice, Defence and Equality, there is a fair wind behind the concept of community courts now. The community court that I want to see as a start-off, as a pilot project, is what was recommended in a report carried out by the National Crime Council in 2007, where they carried out an extensive piece of research on the concept of community courts. They made several recommendations, one of them being that a pilot community court should be established in Dublin city centre, adjacent to the Sheriff Street and Pierce Street Garda divisional districts. I think that that is an exceptionally good idea. A community court that would look at alternatives to sending people to prison. A community court that would be located along with, that effectively be co-located along with people who deal in anger management, people who deal in drugs and alcohol addictions, people who are involved in community employment, people who are involved in welfare, in family disputes, parenting courses, and so on. That effectively the community court would be essentially part of an overall one-stop shop to ensure that people who find themselves before the courts can get immediate remedies. The whole notion of community courts is that for offences such as assault, petty crime, prostitution, crimes in the area of shoplifting, all that type of thing, that we would look at an alternative concept. We would look at an alternative way of doing business. In many cases, as I said at the beginning of my contribution here, people fall into the wrong company due to being in the wrong environment, to a large extent being in the wrong place at the wrong time. People like that deserve a second chance in our society. People like that deserve to have the vehicles of state that are there and are willing to help engage with them at an early stage. We all talk about early interventions, whether it is in medicine, whether it is in education. I am contending that early interventions in the whole area of justice is equally as important. When somebody finds themselves at the wrong end of the law, that they can be brought in to a court that is within their community, that is part of their community, that is a fabric of their community, and that will come up with common sense community responses and common sense community remediation to get them back in action. I would see this as being an essential element of what we should consider as our future justice system. That coupled with restorative justice, which we have debated in this House, and indeed we've had a unanimous motion on restorative justice. Where restorative justice practices are in place on a pilot basis in this country, there has been a dramatic fall in second offences and follow-on offences. I would contend that community courts will have an equally successful outcome were this pilot programme to go ahead. So this motion is timely because I believe that there is a fair wind behind this. I am calling on the Minister for Justice to immediately set up an implementation panel, which again was recommended in the 2007 report, with the view in 6 months' time or 12 months' time, when all the stakeholders have been properly consulted, including the judiciary, the district court, the law society, the people involved in various addiction treatments and so forth, all of those people have been engaged with, brought on the implementation panel, that we set up a community court on a pilot basis in Dublin city centre. This minister and this government are committed to alternative ways of doing business. We're committed to better ways of doing business. Community courts is a better way of doing business. The whole notion of lock them up and throw away the key, that's not working. Our prisons are jammed and it's simply not working. So this alternative is something that I know Minister Shatter is deeply committed to. And what better way, I suppose, to acknowledge the third anniversary of the 2011 general election than to have this motion unanimously supported by Shannon Aaron, with the hope that before the end of the lifetime of this government that we see a community court in Dublin running successfully, and hopefully then that we will see it rolled out on a regional basis.
Thank you.